Hey guys, Scott from Fright Props here, and today we're going to be taking a look at our Scare Sound and Strobe kit. This kit was designed to be the simplest and most affordable way to have an actor trigger a scare sound that's synced with a strobe light going off. So let me show you what we have here. These are all components from the kit. We have a speaker here. This is actually just one side of a pair of speakers that would come with the full kit. We have an 1/8" stereo audio cable that's going to connect our audio from our BlueTunes to our speaker. We have our BlueTunes controller, which is our triggerable MP3 player. We have a strobe light. In the kit you can choose from several different models. We're just using the smallest one here for our demo. We have a single relay, a 12-volt relay, which is going to attach to the BlueTunes and allow us to control a 110-volt device with the BlueTunes. We have an SD card. We have an AC cable that we've cut some of the shielding off here to reveal the wires inside, and we'll get to why we've done that in a little bit. And we have just a little bit of 22.2 low voltage wire, which I'm going to be using to connect the relay to the BlueTunes. So the way this kit works is we're actually making use of kind of a little known benefit of the BlueTunes MP3 player. Again, the BlueTunes is a triggerable MP3 player, but it also has one busy output. And that's an output that turns on when the BlueTunes is playing a triggered sound. So using that, we're going to control this relay. We're going to route 110-volt power through the relay so that when that busy output turns on, when our sound is playing, it's going to trigger the relay and turn on our strobe light. So let's go ahead and show you how to wire all this up. First thing we can do is connect our 1/8" stereo cable from the BlueTunes to the speaker. We're just going to plug one end into the line out at the top of the BlueTunes, and the other end is going to go into the in on the back of our speaker, which is here. Okay, so the BlueTunes is now connected to our speaker. Next, we're going to connect our relay to the BlueTunes. I'm going to zoom in to show you that in more detail. All right, so here we have the BlueTunes up at the top. You can see that we have our input terminals here for triggering the BlueTunes. You can have up to 8 different trigger inputs. We have our DMX here if we were going to be using DMX. And we have our power terminal. This is the one we're going to be focusing on today. You can see we have 4 terminals here. We have ground, 9 to 24 volt, and the busy output. We're going to be connecting this relay to that busy output. Now the relay has 2 sides, one for the power coming in from the controller, which will tell the relay when to activate, and the other side is the relay itself. You can see that there are 3 terminals, normally closed, closed, and normally open. The way that this relay and pretty much any relay works is that by default, normally closed and common are connected, meaning that this circuit is closed through those 2 terminals. When power is applied, it's going to open the circuit, meaning that the common is going to then connect to the normally open terminal. So what we're going to want to do is route our power for our strobe light through the relay, through the C and normally open terminal, common and normally open, so that when the relay is switched by the controller, it closes that circuit, allowing power to flow through to our light. I'm just going to cut a little bit of this 22.2 wire using our wire strippers here. We don't need a lot, so we're just going to cut just a few inches here. And then we're going to strip off just a little bit on each end. And this will give us the 2 wires that we're going to use to connect the positive and negative voltage terminals on the relay to the BlueTunes. We can go ahead and just strip a little bit off of the end of the wires. That should be good there. And we'll go ahead and start by wiring one end into the power terminal of the relay. So you can see there are 2 terminals here, negative and positive. We're just going to put black into negative and red into positive. Okay, just put them in and then tighten down those screw terminals. All right, so the next thing we have to do is connect the BlueTunes and the relay together. Now we're going to be borrowing power from the boot tunes to power the relay, because we do need to actually send power to the relay in order to get it to activate and close our circuit. So to do that, we're going to use what we call a jumper wire. This is just a single short piece of 22.2 gauge low voltage wire, and we're going to run that from ground over to the first terminal on the busy output here. So we just put one end in ground, one end in the first of the two terminals on the busy output there, and screw that in. All right, next we're just going to take our red wire coming from our relay and put it into 9 to 24 volt, and the ground, the negative wire, will go in the other terminal of the busy output. Okay, so our relay is now connected to our busy output. We can go ahead and zoom out and look at the overall picture again. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is get 110 volt power coming into our relay and over to our 110 volt light. To do that, I have this short extension cable. I've removed some of the outer housing here so that you can see the 3 wires inside the cable: black, white, and green. So those are negative, positive, and ground. We're going to go ahead and take the black wire and we're going to snip it. Then we're going to strip the 2 ends and put them into the terminals of the relay. This will allow the relay to close this circuit back, which will allow the power to flow from one end to the other, powering our light. Okay, so with the wire stripped, we can go ahead and just install them into the terminals of the relay. One into normally open, and the other into common. Okay, we can now plug in the light to one end of the cable here, and we'll plug the other end into our extension cord, which is plugged into our 110 volt power. Alright, so the last thing we have to do is actually install our trigger into input 1 of the boot tunes, which is the input we'll be using for this demo. We have here just a simple button with 2 wires. This button triggers by connecting these 2 wires together. So we're actually going to need another jumper because the input terminals on the boot tunes require voltage in order to activate. You can see here they're marked 5 to 24 volt DC. So we're going to take another little jumper wire and we're going to install this one from positive over to C, the common terminal on this first row of inputs. We're just going to open up the power terminal over here and remove our wire that's already there. Combo it with the new wire that we're adding just by putting them together and giving them a quick twist. Then we'll insert them back into the terminal together and secure it down with our screwdriver. Now we can take this jumper wire and put it over to the common terminal on this first set of inputs here. Alright, and that brings our power over to the common inputs. Next, we're just going to take one wire from our button, put it into the ground over on our power, and the other into 1. Whichever of the different input terminals we plug our second wire into in this first block of 1 through 4 is the input that will trigger when we press our button. So we want to make sure we're using input number 1. Just put the wire in and re-secure the terminal. Alright, with that done, we're ready to go ahead and go over to the computer and put our sounds on the SD card for the boot tunes. We'll be right back, put the SD card in, and we'll be ready to test our effect. Okay, so here we are over at the PC. We have inserted the SD card into our SD card reader, and I've opened it here. You can see we're on removable disk G, that's our SD card reader. And you can see it's currently empty. We have our sound here, scream.mp3, and we're going to create a couple folders on this SD card in order to tell the boot tunes when to play the sound that we want to play. So the first folder we're going to create, we're actually not going to use, but I like to create it anyways. This is a folder called ambient. And you want to type it just like this, all caps. If you were to put a sound in this folder, it would be playing whenever the boot tunes is powered up. So if you want some kind of background soundtrack or something playing in the room or where your scare is at that is interrupted by the scare sound, you could put it in here. Now we have our scream sound, and that's all we want to play for this demo, and we want to play it when input 1 is triggered on the boot tunes. So we're going to go ahead and right click, we're going to go and create a new folder, and we're going to call this one input 1. Alright. Now, any file that we put into this folder is going to play when input 1 is triggered. So we can just take our scream.mp3 and drag it into the input 1. It'll copy it over. We can open this up now and see that our scream.mp3 is in here. And there are actually a bunch of different options that we can do by adding folders inside this folder for input 1. One of the most commonly used is something called NC input. So we can actually change the input to a normally closed input, meaning that instead of when the input is closed, when the button is pressed, it would play our sound. When the button was let go, say we're using like a proximity sensor or something in an escape room where you wanted a door to open and a sound to play, you would use this setting. So all you would do to initialize a setting like that, right click, go to create a new folder, and you would name it _NC input. And that's it. You don't put anything in the folder, you just create an empty folder. There are tons of settings you can do this way. You can also create one called _no loop. And this would prevent the file from looping if your trigger was held down. So say you're using something like a RFID trigger or a step mat that people might stand on for an extended period of time, and you only wanted the sound to play one time. You could go ahead and put this folder called no loop in here, again just an empty folder, and the sound will only play once when the trigger is activated. And there are tons more of these settings that you can use. They're all available in the BooTunes manual, so you can have all sorts of different settings in here. We actually don't need any for our demo, so I'm just going to delete those, and we're going to leave it just as it is, and we can go ahead and back up just to check that we have our folders the way we want them, and then we will just right-click on our disk and hit eject. It'll go ahead and eject it from the computer. We can take it out, go over to the table, put it in the BooTunes, and test our effect. Okay, we're back, and here is our SD card, freshly formatted for the BooTunes from our PC. We can go ahead and just put that into the BooTunes unit. Now, as you recall, we have a sound in the input 1 folder, our scream.mp3 file. When we hit the button, it's going to trigger input 1. That's going to play our sound on our speaker, but it's also going to trigger the relay attached to the busy input, which will set off our light. All right, so here we go. Alright, so you can see there we hit our button, our scare sound played, and our strobe light activated. A couple of things to note before we go. Usually we're dealing with low voltage and we don't have to be too worried about shocking ourselves when we're wiring things. In this case, we do have 110 volt flowing here through the relay. So if you're going to be doing any wiring here at the relay, make sure to disconnect your power before you touch the relay or do any of the wiring here. Another thing to note is that this trigger doesn't have to be a push button. It can be any of our triggers. So you could use a motion sensor, a beam sensor, a step mat, any of our triggers that will work with a BooTunes. Alright, so that is a look at our scare sound and strobe light kit with the BooTunes. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment on this video or send us an email at sales@fryeprops.com. Thanks!